All right, welcome back to the Fancy Labs podcast. This is Brian. It is Tuesday night, so we're going over the Wednesday slate. We got 10 games on the slate. I'm here with one, the only, the funniest man in NBA DFS, Jay Pearson. What up, man?
You read my second Twitter account?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Doing well, just back on the pod. I never left from last night. I've just been sitting here staring blankly at the screen for 20 hours. But yeah, it's a lot of the same teams that I kind of just went over. We have 9 teams on the second leg of a back-to-back and 3 teams on the first leg of back-to-back. So definitely an interesting slate as far as playing time and kind of what we're used to with these pods.
Can I just copy paste what you said last night into tonight?
You can. I don't want to say it again, so you got it.
All right. So let's jump into these games. We got 10 to go over. So we'll start off with the first game of the night, which is the 7 o'clock game, Atlanta-Charlotte. No, there's 2 7 o'clock games. Atlanta-Charlotte will be the first one we go over, though. I'll give you the total here. It's 204.5, and Atlanta's 2.5-point favorite. So not a bad game, really. You wouldn't think maybe it would be that high, in the 205 range. But a lot of these games, we don't have lines on 3 of them, the 3 last games. Mostly just because there's a lot of back-to-backs tomorrow. So that'll kind of – and a lot of injuries. So there's kind of a lot of things up in the air. But a lot of these lines are pretty high. So I think there's some good fantasy potential in a lot of areas. So we'll try to sort through them all. But, yeah, I'll kick it to you, Jay, for kind of injuries and updates on this Atlanta-Charlotte game.
Yeah, we got a few on the Atlanta side. We have Jeff Teague is probable with a sprained left ankle. And then Thabo is probable with a wrist injury, and Kyle Korver's probable with his wrist, although he's fully expected to play. Kind of usual for them to do that with Korver and Thabo there. And then no notable injuries that are affecting us right now on the Charlotte side.
Finally, for once, yeah.
Well, outside of, Gilchrist and Al Jay.
Yeah. Outside of 2 of the best players. Yeah.
Pretty big. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who cares for Charlotte? What, they've lost 7 in a row? What's up with your team?
Yeah.
They just lost to the Nuggets, man.
I know. That was brutal. Yeah, they've been bad lately. Yeah, I think most of it has to do with Batum's absence. And I get that he was back, but I didn't think he looked 100%.
No, that's fair. I'm just hating.
I mean, you have a reason to. They lost 7 in a row to the Nuggets, so I get it. Yeah, it's
not great.
Yeah,
but on the Hawks, I think dissecting them right now with the way kind of their rotation is, Coach Bud is kind of eager to bounce minutes around outside of like Millsap and Horford, who seem a bit more secure. You look at a guy like Teague, who can go 22 to 26 minutes on any given night. So it's definitely kind of worrisome as far as contemplating playing him. But I really do like Millsap and especially Horford in this game. I like Horford. He's 7,200 on DK, and he's been playing really well lately. I think that's a really great price for him in this high total. Good matchup for him too.
Agreed, yeah. And most importantly for Horford, his usage has been up. He's been taking double-digit shots and been more involved in the offense. So part of the problem with Horford and really just all these Atlanta guys in general is that not only can you not predict the minutes, you usually have no clue what their usage is going to look like. They just kind of spread the ball around. They take pride in being Spursy. They're like any guy can go off, but any guy can also suck on a night. And they're not reliant on any one guy, no star. But Horford is really good, and it's kind of good to see him take some more usage and play well. So I think it's 7-2 on DraftKings. That's fine. Definitely cash plays. Millsap cash playable for you? The minutes at that price are a little concerning for me.
Yeah, I think he's just a little bit too expensive. Probably easier to go on FanDuel. I think 8K on DK with the kind of tighter cap is a little bit – no, I'd rather go on FanDuel, I think, if I were going to go on. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think Schroeder could make for an interesting tournament play here. He's been seeing some minutes at least lately. He was obviously in the doghouse there for a bit. I kind of think if Teague is somewhat limited with that ankle, Coach Bud kind of just goes with the flow and hot hand. And I think Schroeder has upside at 5K on both sides to be a kind of a sneaky round tournament play.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's seen the – the minutes aren't the reason that I would go him. It's the fact that he can crush in like only 20 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean he had 37 fantasy points in only 20 minutes last game. So I don't think there's a whole lot of minutes upside, but I mean he could, really put up a lot of points even in low minutes. So maybe not a ton of exposure because at 5K, that's quite a bit to go for a guy who's not guaranteed more than 20 minutes. But
Yeah, I
he
agree.
has upside with the skill. Charlotte's side, what are you looking at any of these guys? Obviously, Batum, we talked about wasn't at 100%. Still got pretty high minutes. So maybe the play will come back around eventually, but maybe it's not a spot you want to count on that.
Yeah, it's tough. I'd like to get a piece of this game, which is nice. But on the Hornets side, I'm not really targeting anyone in cash. Just kind of the health all around that they have. I mean, outside of obviously two we brought up earlier, but I'm not looking to go Batum here too much in cash, nor am I looking to go Kemba in cash. I think this team is kind of spread out at this point a little bit more than we'd like to see them for cash purposes. So I think you can make a case for tournaments with the usual, Kemba and Batum. And then Jeremy Lamb's been getting some time off the bench. Are you interested in him at all?
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to continue to get 30 minutes off the bench, yeah, for sure. I don't know if I would count on that, but I do think that is worth some exposure for sure. So yeah, I think that he's a pretty intriguing tournament play. And his price isn't too bad. He's at 4.7.
Right. Yeah, it's about the same as it's been.
He's a shooting guard, so it's always tough to find value, especially in tournaments and at shooting guard. So yeah, I don't mind that. Charlotte's not super exciting, kind of usual suspects. Walker, Boom, and Lamb, and that's just kind of about it, really.
Yeah, Zeller's had his games and stuff, but he's not at a price point really where I'm actively looking for him too much. No love for your boy Frank the Tank.
Always love for Frank the Tank.
Always got a few tournament shares.
Oh, yeah, I thought that was assumed.
It is.
Yeah, and Jeremy Lin, he's at 5.1. He's not getting amazing minutes on a consistent basis. So, I mean, I guess you could roll him in tournaments. I don't think this is a great matchup. Teague and Schroeder, kind of that 1-2 punch at point guard makes me worried. Sometimes Jeremy Lin's intriguing if he could do damage off the bench against bad benches, but I actually think Schroeder's a better defender than Teague, so it's not like he gets an easier matchup when Schroeder comes in off the bench. So I don't think that's a great matchup. So I think Lin's a fade.
Yeah, I agree there.
Cool. All right, let's move on. Milwaukee, Washington's the next game we'll hit on. Total here is pretty high, 207.5, and Washington is 5.5-point favorites. So yeah, I'll kick to you for some news and notes.
Yeah, we got Jared Bayless still with sprained left ankle. It's kind of bothered him a lot, almost all year, really. Keeps injuring. So he didn't play tonight being Tuesday. Yeah, I'm not used to these two. Yeah. And then
this is our normal night.
I know, but last night threw me off.
Yeah.
Weird. Messed my whole schedule up the whole week.
Yeah.
And then, so I think he's leaning doubtful, though. I'd be surprised if he played in this game. And then O.J. Mayo with that sore left hamstring was kind of he was a game time decision tonight, but he ended up playing. So we'll kind of see how he looks on that with the hamstring and if, he kind of re-aggravates it or whatnot. So those are two injuries on Buck's side. And then Washington, Beal is still out with that leg injury. Chris Humphries has a sore right knee, and I think he's doubtful to play. I think he was supposed to miss a few games there. So, and then Gortat, obviously the big guy we're looking for in this game, is iffy to play. He's kind of 50-50. I think last I saw he's still in the hospital getting that checked out with a left knee infection.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're looking at kind of the same scenario as last game with I think Gooden opening up some value off the bench and Nene trying to start, but with not huge minutes there.
Cool. So before we get to Washington's side and kind of break them down, so Milwaukee obviously is playing tonight, like we said. So I think it's interesting. Washington been playing not so great, but actually had a really good game against the Bulls. Was it last night? And I think MCW is really an interesting spot here. At 7.5, he's a little expensive for me. And Yeah, I'm not sure if I like really any of these guys in cash. I potentially like Monroe at 6'8" if Gortat's going to be out. But other than that, it's kind of tournament only for Milwaukee. And I like most of their starting five in tournaments.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I'm looking at him, and I like him a lot in this matchup, especially if Gortat's out with Monroe there, and his price on DK is only 6,800, so he
This is
definitely
good.
stands out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
They are on a back-to-back, of course, so it's something depending on how the game is tonight. I think they're losing by a bit to the Bulls right now, but
Monroe just doesn't get any minutes. Like, he crushes
yeah,
in his minutes. He just doesn't get them.
yeah, it's tough. One guy I like quite a bit is Middleton in this. It's well documented that Washington has trouble defending the three ball on the perimeter and whatnot. So I'm looking at Middleton to
And he's their
been
only
playing,
shooter.
yeah, he's been playing well, and he's a lock for huge minutes. I mean, he's been really safe in minutes. So yeah, I like him probably the most out of everyone. I think MCW still has a lot of allure in cash games if Bayless is out. I think the game that we can go off as of right now was the last game, not the one going on as we talk, but where he only played 22 minutes, and I don't really expect to see that happening again. I think he played 10 minutes, or he's played I think the whole first quarter so far, but Mayo can play the backup point though, so it's not like MC Dub's in that lock for massive minutes. So I think he's a little bit more of a tournament play for me. And then, I like Monroe a lot for tournaments and could enter that cash consideration on DK if Gortat's out.
Yeah, I think he does for me. Where's Middleton on FanDuel? Do you have him?
Yeah, he's he's 6,700.
So he's 68 on DK. Do you like him a little more on DK with the 3-point bonus?
Yeah, and he's shooting guard eligible. Well, I don't know. It's tough. I guess the whole slate, because really you kind of just want to go one shooting guard on DK as is. So there might be a guy who's a good bit cheaper where you don't really need to spend that much. Sure. I mean, that's not great, really, a price for him, but he is consistent and lately has a high floor. So,
right.
I think he makes sense on both sides. But, yeah, the 3-point bonus is definitely nice considering he's facing Washington.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's move on to the other side. And like we can say that before, Gortat's availability really kind of opens up, either opens up or does not a lot of the value on the slate with potentially good in here. But let's kind of start at the top. Wall at 9-6 in a good matchup. Crushing lately. Are you okay with him in cash?
Yeah, I think he's fine. I don't necessarily know that I'll go that route and kind of pay that, but yeah, I mean, his floor obviously right now is great, really. I mean, he's not gonna screw you over too bad, I don't think, ever at this point. But yeah, and he gets a Bucks team on a back-to-back going against a physical Bulls kind of. So yeah, I like him a lot to take advantage here. I'd probably lean more tournament play for him, and then I think Otto Porter still has those big minutes to kind of put him in cash game consideration, depending on the small forward, kind of how that shapes out.
I mean, he's been super consistent. You can look at his game log. He's been, right at like 32 fantasy points every game. So I do think it's a pretty safe floor, both in terms of like his production and his minutes. So yeah, I don't hate that.
And then, the Gortat news will kind of reflect how we feel about, obviously, Gooden and Gortat if he plays.
And Dudley too, right?
Yeah. I mean, Dudley will get those big minutes, but we've seen just so many times Dudley with huge minutes kind of
not do anything.
So I still don't think you can go him in cash.
Definitely no cash. Yeah.
But I think Gooden for sure. He doubled off the bench. He played 27 minutes, which for him is quite a bit, but I don't think he needs much more than that really to break value. I think he's 3,800 on both sites, so that opens up a lot, especially FanDuel.
Yeah, and that was against a lot tougher matchup than this one. Against the Bulls as opposed to, the Milwaukee, who is awful against
they're terrible. So I think hopefully, Gortat's out, so we can just kind of pencil Gooden in there. And
3-8. Yeah, he opens up so much.
Right, and I guess I'd expect Nene to draw that start again. And Nene was supposedly on a 12 to 15-minute limit, but that wasn't a hard limit, it turned out, and he played 20. So I think we can kind of assume he'll be right around that again. And I think Gooden's good for 26 minutes if Gortat's out.
Yeah, but if that's the case, Gooden's the play. Cheaper price and more both floor and upside for me.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay. New York, Brooklyn's the next game. We'll go to Battle of New York. And this is the one like super low total here. Every total we have is above 200 except this one, which is way down at 192.5. New York is 5-point favorites, and we got some back-to-backs here, obviously. So, yeah, kick it to you for some news and notes if you got any.
Yeah, no really injuries. Obviously, the Knicks are coming off back-to-back, and then Brooklyn, Jarrett Jack is out for the season. So we saw them kind of mix their starting lineup up last game and start Donald Sloan and Wayne Ellington. And this is a Lopez brothers game again. I think we potted the last time they played head-to-head, which was a blowout. The Knicks won by 17 at home. And then with this Nets lineup change, they used it against the Spurs, so I don't think it's like a fair representation of the starting lineup, which we'll get into in a sec. We can start with the Knicks. On a back-to-back, low total, especially compared to tonight where they were surprisingly a really high total. Is there anyone kind of you're considering? I know we've seen Porzingis just absolutely smash so far tonight.
Right, yeah. I mean, not to be just like super simple and short, but just kind of like if you just look at this game and the total compared to every other game, I mean, it's not only the only one under 200, it's not even close to 200. So I think this is pretty easy. Just fade the entire game in cash.
Yeah, I mean, Melo is still 8,500 on DK, which is pretty nice here. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Brooklyn has a really bad defense, so I definitely think Melo's fine. If I went him, I'd go him on DK where he's cheaper. And then, I mean, the way Porzingis is playing lately, with these minutes he's getting and kind of the steady production that he kind of lacked at times this season, it appears to be back. That I think he's definitely kind of in that consideration. But I'd probably agree with you that I think they make for a slightly better tournament plays than cash on the back-to-back and the low total compared to all the other games.
Yeah, I mean, you got
a lot of the other games are kind of big spreads too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. But I mean, you have like Gordon Hayward and Batum, who are both like over a K less on DraftKings, and Hayward's been pretty good in the last two games in a pretty easy matchup against Portland. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think Melo is an option.
He's
on DK.
Right. That's fair. Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that. And even okay, we'll get to these games later. Okay, so maybe Melo and cash. Any like solid good tournament plays for you?
Not really. It's kind of the same with the Knicks. I think you could look at Robin Lopez if you wanted to in this one, but he's kind of more of a cash play if you're going to go him anyways.
Yeah,
like, for example, Tuesday night, he was kind of had a lot of exposure in cash games just because of the state of center, and I think we have more options on this Wednesday slate than to kind of go him.
Yeah, I think Porzingis and Melo are the guys that I'm looking at in tournaments.
Yep, agree.
Okay. Let's move on from this awful game. Dallas, Oklahoma City is the next game we'll talk about. And
did we do the net? Did you don't want to do the Nets at all? Any plays on them? I mean, I think you can look at Donald Sloan again just because that last game was a huge blowout. So I think Sloan is still really cheap, and I think there's some value there if you're kind of in a pinch to kind of could consider him in cash.
Yeah. Okay.
We can go to the next game.
Yeah. Okay. Dallas, Oklahoma City as next game, and back up to the high totals. This one's 211.5, but it's a big spread. Oklahoma City is 9.5 points, so a nice total here. But obviously, the spread kind of makes it a little interesting as far as cash goes. I'll kick it to you. I'm not sure there's a whole lot of news here.
Yeah, no injuries on either side, and just both teams are on a back-to-back really is the only main notable thing here. So we've seen a few times some of the Mavs starters sit on back-to-backs. I don't necessarily expect that to happen. I mean, we've seen we've seen Dirk obviously sit a few back-to-backs, but he just sat one out, and so did Wes. And those are kind of the two guys you'd expect to maybe sit out, and it's something to keep in mind. But I wouldn't go into this slate thinking that looking for value if one of them sits. So I think we can kind of count on them all playing this one.
Okay. So starting on the Dallas side, it's kind of it's a brutal matchup, I would say. So I'm kind of off these guys in cash. Do you disagree?
Yeah, no, I'm off them in cash for sure. With the Mavs being completely healthy, it's kind of hard to find value there. Otherwise,
and back to back, I feel like Dallas is usually more affected than most teams.
And it's a brutal back-to-back. They got the Cavs and then the Thunder in 2 nights, and the second one's a road, the second leg. So, I mean, yeah, it's far from ideal. We'll see how the game tonight goes, I guess. I mean, if it goes like quadruple overtime, of course, it'll be a little bit different. But, kind of judge that game on whether Dirk might see decreased minutes slightly and whatnot.
Yeah. Is there any guys just like even tournament-wise that are interesting to you?
I mean –
I'm just not seeing much here on Dallas' side that I'm really that interested in.
I mean, the way Dirk's playing, I think, but just back-to-back for Dirk is far from ideal for someone of his age, of course. So, but the Thunder's defense isn't good. It's just that they're just playing really well. The offense, and they're explosive, and that's why this total is so high. Yeah, I mean, they're on fire. So I think you can still have exposure. It's just tough with how many bodies there are to kind of
figure out where,
get a feel of who will do the best. I don't know. I don't know who I would go the most out of all these guys. Maybe Wes, but Robertson's good, so I can't really see him exploding in this one.
Yeah. The problem is that the guys who have consistent minutes, which are like Dirk and Zaza, are really kind of only cash playable just because of who they are. And the guys who are not consistent just have a really bad matchup. So,
yeah, I agree. I mean, Zaza's another guy you could look at for some tournament exposure, I think, in this game.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to get you between 32 and 38 fantasy points.
Right.
I think you can count on that.
Yeah, it was Zaza who got 32.5 4 games in a row, right?
Yeah, it was 30. It was 36.25.
Yeah.
They went up to 38, then went to 34, then went to 33. But yeah, and he's always right there.
Yeah, it's huge.
Okay, so OKC, yeah, obviously the problem is nice game, nice total, but that spread's pretty big.
Yeah, it's the same kind of as tonight. I think they were 11-point favorites, and Durant was still definitely an option just because he's 9,800 on DK, and I think he still is.
He's Durant's under 10K, and he's getting 40 minutes. Like what more?
Yeah.
What situation would he have to be in for you to roster him in cash if it's not under 10K and getting 40 minutes?
I mean, yeah, it's tough because we're playing him. I mean, I played him tonight. Yeah, it's an 11-point favorite, and that's kind of about as big as they'll get, I think, just with their defense not being super shut down. I could see them getting 13.5-point favorites.
Yeah, they're 9.
They were big against the Lakers, of course, but
yeah, sure.
But yeah, Durant at 9,800, and the Mavs aren't awful. I don't think this will just be over halfway through the third quarter, really, with both teams off the back. So I think Durant's still a cash game option.
I think he's a great cash game option.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, his floor is super high, and small forwards never really that great. So he's a good anchor if you can afford him relatively easily.
Yeah, and I think. Yeah, I mean, I think Russ is too. I mean, he's obviously expensive, 10-7, but I mean, he's 10-7 still cheap compared to what he's been doing lately.
Yeah, I mean, he was 12-3 a week ago or whenever Durant was out. So, yeah, I think they're both fine. It just depends on the value that opens up on the slate.
Yeah. I think if Gortat's out and you can slide in Gooden, I think it's I think it makes a lot of sense to go either Durant or Westbrook.
Yeah, I agree, and probably have a piece of one or the other on each side. I think you can get away with here with Gooden especially.
Yeah, agreed. So obviously the question is,
anyone else? Yeah. I mean, Ibaka's been pretty bad for our purposes lately.
Right. Yeah, there's not much here. Adams got big minutes last game.
I mean, Cantor, maybe if this is a blowout and them just kind of being on a back-to-back. Yeah, Adams has been going big minutes. I mean, maybe we see a little bit more Cantor on the back-to-back here, kind of against that second unit.
I agree with you. I think the spread might be a little high, so I think that Dallas. Yeah, I don't think this game would be like a super blowout.
Yeah, enough for Cantor to play a lot of the fourth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, this team's always pretty much Russ and KD that you kind of want to get a piece of.
Yeah.
Sometimes Ibaka, every now and then Adams.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird that we have a 211.5 point total in this game, and we really only like Westbrook and Durant.
Yeah, for cash, you can make a case, I think, and you'd be fine with Cantor in some spots, but I would definitely have light exposure to him.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep on moving. 201 is the total of Indiana and Boston. And Boston is 2.5 point favorites, both coming off of back-to-back. And I think we might not have any news on this game either.
We do from tonight. Rodney Stuckey has a foot injury, and he will not return. So that's something to definitely monitor for tomorrow's game, which can open up some minutes there for the second unit.
Okay, cool. So let's jump right into Indiana. So kind of just cash plays and how you think Stuckey would affect things, with that backcourt.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen Monte. He's been playing big minutes as is. So I think CJ Miles gains some value, assuming that they continue to go with their big lineup that I think they're pretty committed to, because I thought they would start CJ Miles and bench LaVoy Allen for tonight's game going against Phoenix, but it looks like
they should always do that.
They're start CJ Miles,
or just bench LaVoy Allen.
I mean, yeah, I think the biggest thing is, well, obviously the size, but Paul George at the 3, I think they like. So yeah.
Makes sense, yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think. I mean, yeah, CJ Miles I think gains a little bit more value. We saw Stuckey play, I think 30 minutes last game, so he's kind of up. Obviously, yeah. I mean, I think, but we've seen George Hill play huge minutes as well lately. So and I'll note both these teams are, of course, on a back-to-back. So another game where it's two teams in a back-to-back. So we could see, kind of depending on the games how they play out tonight, we could see some winded players maybe and kind of tired, and I think it will affect a few things in a few spots. So what'd you say the total was for this one? This is pretty high, right?
It's 201, so not really.
Okay, yeah, that's lower than that's like right at the Celtics Knicks game.
So I guess it's the back-to-back thing.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, I mean, Paul George, I think he's just a tournament play really at this point, especially on the back-to-back and with Crowder there. And then I think George Hill can open up kind of a tournament play here with kind of the minutes he's been logging. And I think –
So if Stuckey's out, how do you handle Monte?
I mean, I'm not going to really handle him much as is with Avery Bradley D'ing him up. So I'm not on him really at all. And Monte goes big minutes whether Stuckey plays a lot or not. It's more just kind of the bench and possibly CJ Miles seeing a bit more time, which I think could be an interesting tournament play if Stuckey's out for tomorrow. Yeah,
I agree. I think they're tournament really only. So do you agree with the sentiment? So Boston, the reason that they've been good this year, in a good record, going to be in the playoffs and stuff, not necessarily because of elite talent, just because they're so deep. I mean, they're like legit 10 NBA players deep. So do you think maybe it favors Boston a little more as far as, when they're both on a back-to-back?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think so. And then they also have the truth, Brad Stevens, top 3 coach in the league. So that obviously does a lot for them, that a team where you wouldn't think they'd be as strong defensively as they are, but I think he has great schemes, kind of mismatches he exposes offensively and defensively. So I think that's the reason they're so good is more Stevens than kind of the clientele that they have.
He's amazing. Yeah.
like you just brought up with them on a back-to-back, I think they can kind of expand their rotation here a bit more than other teams can, especially. I mean, they already do quite a bit. So we'll see. You know, Isaiah's good for 30, 32, 34, 30 to 34, I'd say. And then, you know, Avery Bradley can go big minutes, but he's very inconsistent. You know, I think Crowder plays probably the safest minutes. It's kind of guys who are solid in the right times, and I think on a back-to-back kind of against the Pacers isn't the best time to target these guys.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, especially if they spread it out a little bit. It just kind of takes the minute safety away, which is obviously not great for us.
Right.
For like a shallow rotation where we know what we're getting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we've already talked about a lot of teams that, like Dallas. We prefer going them if they're shallow rotation. We have teams like Washington. I mean, really, that's what a lot of it is about making your lineups is short, small rotations where you have that security of your starters playing big minutes with high floors. Really, is what we're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. So really, there's not a lot here as far as cash gameplay. I think Jay will be, more defensive minded tomorrow, matching up against PG. Isaiah would be the one guy, but at 7-8 against a lot of minutes of George Hill is not easy to me either. So
I think Isaiah is a tournament play though. I still like him.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Play. But yeah, I'm with you on cash. I'm not really seeing anyone that I'd be willing to go. I mean, they have everybody pretty much healthy, so
yeah,
it's not great.
Cool. And yeah, that's kind of not a super exciting game, I think, because the back-to-back I think is implied by their total here. Okay, let's keep on moving then. Minnesota at Houston is the next game. 206.5 is the total, and a fairly big spread here. Houston is 9.5-point favorites, and they're playing on a back-to-back. So I'll kick to you. Is there any news here?
Yeah, we got both teams on back-to-back. Another game. Both teams. Crazy.
So many back-to-backs.
I know, yeah, it is. It was an interesting schedule this week, kind of. So,
10 slates in a row, yeah.
Right. Yeah, Pekovic sat tonight, Tuesday, for rest. First leg of a back-to-back, but he
just came back.
Yeah.
I just love that he hadn't played in a year, and he played one game and already needs rest.
Yeah, I know. I mean, yeah, it's tough with him in that rotation, unfortunately, with Jang and Towns being far more exciting. But yeah, so he's expected to play the second leg of back-to-back being Wednesday. So we can expect him back, and then KG played tonight, Tuesday. We can expect him to sit tomorrow, Wednesday. So kind of flip-flop those two. Mm-hmm. But we can also see possibly Gorgie drawing that start at power forward with Cat at center, like they usually do lately with when KG sits. And then on the Rockets side, Ty Lawson, his final suspension game was tonight, and so he'll be back for this one. And then Dwight is on a second leg of back-to-back, so he's been playing huge minutes lately and has been looking great. So I think that's a spot where
7-3. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was an easy play tonight on DK at 7-3 going Dwight.
I think he's an easy play tomorrow.
The back-to-back worries me a bit.
Yeah, I mean, a 7-3, it worries me, but it doesn't worry me that much.
Right. It's something to monitor, kind of how tonight's game plays out. So they're tied. It's still the second quarter as of this recording. So,
in theory, this is a pretty juicy game, though, right? The total Houston's projected to score a bunch of points, but looking on the other side, Houston's DVP to their true DVP plus minus allowed to a lot of positions is awful, worse than the NBA awful. So, and it's actually to a lot of guys that we would be interested in. It's to small forward. So I think Wiggins is interesting, even though I know Wiggins shooting guard, but he plays some small forward.
Right. Yeah.
I think that this game is actually, a little more interesting than the line maybe implies here.
Yeah, I completely agree. Both teams are on back-to-backs, so kind of both suffering the same fatigue possibly that they have tonight. But, I think we have a lot of young guys in this game all around that it shouldn't affect them too much. And then just looking at this slate, it's something where you kind of got to pick and choose the guys you think will be affected by a back-to-back because we have so many back-to-backs. So you're going to end up playing some guys on a
back-to-back, right? Yeah.
So I definitely, I mean, this Houston has a horrible defense, and so does Minnesota. So
yeah,
I think
just a lot of offense. Yeah,
definitely find value in this game. I mean, obviously Rubio is great for tournaments. I'd say I wouldn't commit
6'9",
yeah, but I love him as a
6'9",
tournament.
right? Yeah, great tournaments. Yeah.
And then I think Wiggins is in a really good spot for tournament here.
Yeah, I love Wiggins tournaments. He's been playing really well lately, shooting the ball really well in the last two. So that's obviously big for him. When his shot goes down,
right? Yeah, exactly. And this is a spot where I think he has a really good chance of hitting his shots. Of course.
Yeah, and these Houston wing defenders, especially Ariza, has the like he's been thought of as a good defender, and I think in his career he has been a really good defender. But this year it's not been the case. So I think, I agree. Wiggins is in a good spot. So I guess the question is there anyone? We'll start on Minnesota side. Is there anyone cash game playable?
I mean, that's tough. Probably not. I don't think, because the two guys I like the most are Rubio and Wiggins, and then with Pekovic out, I think opens up a higher upside for Cat, but then you have Jang kind of in there to bother him in terms of picking up stats like rebounds and whatnot, and kind of a presence in the post where Jang can get blocks that Cat might otherwise have gotten. So I still like the upside of Cat, and obviously they're expecting to go against Dwight, assuming he plays on back-to-back. So I think it's more of a tournament spot, but a tournament spot that I think we both really like quite a bit.
Yeah, no, for sure. I do think if you're going to go cash, I think Rubio's the guy.
But, he'd be the guy. Yeah, I agree.
But it's like a C play, okay. And so other than like the big three, do you like any of these guys? I mean, do you like Jang in tournaments as well?
I mean, let me look at his price. It depends.
He's 39 on DraftKings.
He is really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, absolutely. Then I mean, that's really cheap. He was like 55 not too long ago.
Yeah. His minutes have been down.
Yeah, it's tough because KG's not he only played 7 minutes I think last game, so it's kind of like, I still, just because Jang, if he draws that spot start, I don't think you can really just like throw him in your cash lineup. But I
don't think it's cash, but I do think at 3.9,
that's really cheap. And if you need to save a lot of money, given what's just how the slate kind of shapes out, I think that's a good spot, getting that spot start for him in this matchup too, that I like for him.
Yeah, it's a good matchup for sure. Cool.
Real quick, so before we move on to the next game, I wanted to take it back to the Knicks game. So the Knicks Nets, just got word that Melo sprained his
ankle.
Rolled his ankle. So we're considering him highly questionable to play. So that obviously changes quite a bit of really this whole game. So what do you think if let's play the other side, that if Melo's out on the back-to-back with an ankle where he'll probably sit, we can maybe Lance Thomas draws a start here at a cheap price.
Yeah, I think Lance Thomas becomes a really good play here.
So he's 3,400 on DK.
Yeah, I think he becomes cash playable in a game where I already said that I didn't like anyone in cash.
Unfortunately, news has changed. So we got to bring this up. I think Porzingis is a higher option now with this news a little bit. I think kind of they all are. I think a Flalo makes for a probably more of a tournament play a bit, just because kind of his secondary stats are lacking. But
if you look at his numbers, when Melo's been out, it's crushed. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he'll be jacking up a lot of shots. I think definitely opens up a ton. I think even Derek Williams could see a bit more time in the second unit. They kind of would need his offense, and this is the Nets. So all of a sudden that we have some value here that you can look at. And then on the Nets side, it's the same thing. I think you get a little bit more value. Kind of obviously the line will be a bit closer, but I think the Knicks are still solid defensively, especially in the post. So it doesn't change too much, but I think you can kind of consider them a little bit more than we kind of wrote them off.
Yeah, I think I'd actually be like, if I was going to be more interested in one guy, it would be Sloan, actually. Just
Right.
assuming that the game would be a little bit closer.
Agree.
Yeah, it doesn't affect the defense of New York. So
Yeah, no, for sure.
Lopez and Thad are still tournament only at
Yeah.
best, but
And
Sloan becomes more interesting if it's closer.
yeah, and looking at this game as a whole, the total will likely even get lower if Melo is out. But I don't think that necessarily means that you ought to run away from the value in this game. That opens up with possibly Lance trying that spot start, and then Sloan being cheap and not really having a great first game as a starter lately with them playing the Spurs.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, good point for sure. Let's jump back to Minnesota, Houston before we move on, and just kind of touch on Houston real quick. We talked about this game is really, really good for tournaments. Iffy for cash. Is that how you feel on the Houston side?
I don't think it's too iffy for cash, really. I think
I love Dwight in cash and tournament.
If Dwight is like fine and Bickerstaff is like, he's fine, and Dwight says he's fine, his back's feeling good, the back-to-back's not an issue, then absolutely, I agree 100% that Dwight on DK cash specifically makes for a great play because he's playing huge minutes and obviously has huge upside with the ability to get over 15 rebounds easily here. So definitely like him, and then I like Harden a lot as well in the game.
Under 10K.
Right. So yeah, I think they're both cash game playable. It was obviously Harden. That's it's not like an absurd price range, but it's a lot to kind of commit to on this slate. So it'll kind of depend where you want to save, where you want to spend to consider him. But I think he's definitely a consideration.
Yeah, but I mean, like if some value opens up, like it potentially might, if you want to go Lance Thomas and Drew Gooden, you could definitely afford, Howard and Durant pretty easily.
Yeah, it's looking like this slate will kind of resemble tonight's slate where there was a lot of value opened up, and you could kind of, and that's when it's really crucial to pick between the value guys. And a lot of it comes into positional scarcity and where you want to use your value and where you want to spend on. So you kind of look at the position as a whole. Like for tonight, example with Archie Goodwin, kind of obviously he was dirt cheap, but on FanDuel, I don't think he was as must play because you had other good options there with like Tyreek and Drew and a couple other guys. So it's really important to pick the spots where you're going to go these cheap guys and not necessarily just pick the first guys that are value.
Yeah, just because some guys are value doesn't mean you have to play them. You have to choose kind of what that value means for your lineup.
If anything, it makes it a little bit more difficult, and this is where I think edges can come out, and you can have, the upper hand on your opponents when you are kind of aware of some of these value plays not being like optimal plays for your actual lineup, right?
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. Okay, let's. But before we move on, I'll say real quick. I think the only other guy that's super interesting on Houston is Beverly. He got high minutes last game. I'm concerned that's not going to be the case again. So he's tournament only at best, but he would be the other guy that would potentially.
Yeah. With Lawson coming back, I think. Yeah.
Oh, is Lawson back? Okay.
Yeah. Lawson will be back from his suspension. So yeah, I'm pretty off Beverly.
Okay. All right. That's all right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, cool. Let's keep on moving. Golden State, Denver next game. Over-under's 211, and Golden State's 9-point favorites against Denver on the road. Some news and notes, and the news and notes breaks your heart tonight.
Yeah. Oh man, are you sure you don't want to give the news and notes for this one?
Yeah, no, I mean I will.
At least one of them. Obviously.
Yeah. So
take it away.
In what should be the most exciting Golden State Warriors game of the season, Draymond Green is going to be out. So finally a Golden State game I can watch. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to be glued to the TV wondering how good – I mean, I'm expecting you to hope that the Warriors just blow the Nuggets out so you can go back to saying Dre is an average player.
An average player.
barely above replacement value.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting. I think luckily it's the Nuggets, so I don't think
It doesn't matter, right?
they'll need him as much.
Yeah, they get the Nuggets and Lakers back to back, right? So
Yeah, and I'm fully on board. I think it's really important for them to rest some of these guys, Curry, Dre,
yeah,
kind of all
especially
of them.
against awful teams like this. Yeah,
Yeah, like
there's
they're
no
deep enough
reason. Yeah,
to still win, and they shouldn't care as much about kind of personal stats or
yep.
MVP considerations, stuff like that. I think their focus is obviously on repeating the championship. So,
Yep.
but for us, for our purposes,
It opens up some stuff.
yeah, I mean, who cares about who wins it all? We don't care about that stuff. We care about where the value is and who are
Winning
playing in
money.
their lineups, and tilting and stuff like that is a lot of fun. So, and then
Is
yeah,
there
and
any more news?
yeah, so so Dre is listed as questionable, but he's likely to sit. So we're considering him out for this one. And then Iguodala and Livingston will sit either Wednesday or Thursday. And I think if Dre sits Wednesday, I think we can expect Iggy and Livingston to sit Thursday. But that's something to monitor. And then on the Denver side, they're playing the Warriors anyway, so it's not great. But they get Jameer Nelson back with a hip injury, and then they get Fareed back, who was out for personal reasons. So the Denver side, they're definitely pretty deep here.
Yeah. So for sure they're definitely deep, and really their backups are kind of equivalent, if not better, talent than Denver. So I do think that it does open up, even more value on a slate that we think there's going to be a lot of value. If Draymond Green's out, obviously there's a lot of usage, a lot of assists, a lot of everything to go around. So
you admit that he gets some assists. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of assists that are going around now without Dre Magic.
He likes his stats. Like Rajon Rondo, he likes to rack up his
stats. Man, they are not even close.
Nah,
that's all right. Yeah, no, it's all good.
I'm just messing. So, but obviously there's a lot of stats to go around, and even more important, there's minutes in a good team. So,
right.
Yeah, so that's important. So, what are your thoughts on kind of where you would expect the minutes and usage to go with Draymond's absence?
Yeah, so I think they're just expecting probably Harrison Barnes to pick up that start. So it'll kind of just be a swap in the starting lineup of Dre out, Barnes in. I think we'll see Rush drive another start here, and I think Iggy will probably have a bigger role off the bench overall, kind of, but probably not enough to consider him in cash. I think the two guys that I like a lot are definitely Curry and Clay, and especially Curry. I think this could be a game where he just kind of goes off, I think, against the Nuggets.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, he's going to have like 100% of the playmaking duties.
Clay's not going to. Yeah, right. Clay's not going to do the playmaking duties. Barnes is there, but he's obviously far from Draymond in terms of playmaking and the open court and whatnot. So I think Curry definitely has a huge potential for a pretty large double-double with assists, I think, climbing in this one. And I think it's interesting with Harrison Barnes.
So that's what I was wondering if you would be okay with
how many minutes he'll go. I like him starting, but he's still playing alongside Curry and Clay. So I don't necessarily think Barnes will be super active or have a really high usage rate or anything right off the bat. But I do like the fact that he's starting. And if you need the value, we've kind of already gone over some of these situations where, you might have Gooden, you might have a couple other cheap guys, but Barnes is right there. He's cheaper on FanDuel. He's 4,900.
49's not bad, yeah.
Right. So that's definitely pretty solid. And, I think you can definitely consider him there in cash, depending on how the slate how the slate goes and where your other value plays are. I probably like the other value plays a bit more than Barnes, but he's not a bad option to kind of fall back on if some of those other ones don't work out.
Yeah, I agree for sure. So is Steph cash worthy at 10-6?
I think so. Yeah, I kind of do. I think Dre out just puts a lot more on Curry to kind of.
So Steph at 10-6 or Durant at, where is he, 9-8?
I'd probably lean Steph, I think.
Yeah, that's completely fair.
But you have the positional differences. Obviously, there's more depth at point guard than small forward, of course. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting. I think Steph's definitely though a strong play in both formats in this game
yeah,
without Trey and facing
yeah.
the Knicks who
Yeah.
have a really really poor defense.
Agreed. Yeah, I think Steph is an awesome play in all formats for sure.
And what do you think about Clay, kind of at shooting guard, playing the Nuggets, who were not good at defending?
Yeah, I do think that is a good call. I am really interested in like how these guys are like tied together. Like Draymond's, I saw this earlier. Draymond's like 65% of his assists go to Curry and Clay. So that obviously says a lot about Draymond. The fact that he has like the two best shooters in the like history of the NBA that he can pass to. But it also says a lot about Clay that he's getting good assist opportunities from Draymond. So I think it goes both ways where you could kind of question,
Yeah,
does he get less great opportunities as far as like catch and shoot opportunities if Draymond's out? And I think that's
yeah. I mean, I would agree. I think so, but we are talking about the Nuggets, and we've seen
it may not matter, right?
the screens will still be there, and you'll still see Clay get open shots, and more importantly, take a lot of shots. So I think he's an option. I'm with you that it kind of cancels out probably all things considered. But you're looking more than anything, I think, at the plus matchup here with Denver.
Yeah.
So I think he's an option. I wouldn't be surprised to see him like around 20%, 25% in cash on FanDuel, where he's 7,600 compared to 82 on DK, where you got to start one. So I think on FanDuel where you have to start two, I wouldn't be too surprised to see his ownership around that. I don't think he's like the strongest cash game play, just knowing that he's just so scoring dependent as is.
Right.
But I think he's still an option there.
Yep. Agreed. And then, before we move on, Denver, not a great matchup, obviously, but they don't have Draymond there, so maybe some tournament exposure here.
Yeah, it'd be only tournament for sure. For the Nuggets or for the Warriors again, I think Bogut has some sneaky upside going against kind of the three centers that Denver will have out there. So I think I think he's a fine tournament play in this game.
Sure.
And then so on Denver's side, it's really hard to kind of play guys as is, but now that they're like as healthy as they've been all year in this game, with Jameer and Fareed back, it kind of kills a lot of the value. We saw Moutier come back and start, and he played 39 minutes, which I thought was really unexpected. I was very surprised to see him go that big in that first game. Obviously, with Jameer out, but they could have played Foy a bit more minutes, and they didn't. Yeah. So I think with Jameer back, I'm not expecting Moutier to go 39 minutes again. So I think his value gets hurt. It's just you look at kind of position by position, and they have like viable backups at every position outside of maybe Gallo. I think is the one guy.
Yeah,
I think you would consider here in tournaments, just kind of the Nuggets being at home, an island game for them. They're not worried about a back-to-back first leg or back leg. So I think Gallo's the guy to probably make the strongest tournament case for.
And he's been playing really well lately and he's really the only guy that's getting consistent minutes for them. So he's the safest play, but he's also gets the hardest defender, which is Iggy.
So
kind of cancels each other out for me.
And Iggy played in Denver a bit, so he obviously knows Gallo. So I think you can kind of avoid Denver for the most part. Not saying that like they won't score. I think they'll get plenty of points kind of in this game, especially with the Warriors without Dre. So I think the points will be there with them at home. It's just a matter of them distributing their points to a lot of guys.
Right.
That kind of gets me off all these guys as far as, you got Garrett Harris playing huge minutes, Gallo huge minutes. Barton, we've seen his decreased minutes lately. I don't think his price, you can really go him too much. I think he's probably, though, the second tournament guy that I'd like on this team.
I think Smith will bump up against a maybe a little less potent Golden State second line with
right, and Golden State will probably try to play pretty small and quick. So I'm not sure how Jokic will fare in this one. Obviously, a tough matchup as is. I think, I mean, he's probably my third favorite tournament play if you're going to go that route and kind of think that the Nuggets will score a good solid amount of points with Dre out. So those are kind of the three guys I'd probably look at. We saw Nurkic only play 14 minutes last game.
Yeah.
Still got Joff, who played 8. So it's kind of a tough situation with the three centers there. And, you know, you got Fareed and Arthur now. We're assuming Fareed will start. You got Arthur who can still play. So I don't really like either of those guys too much.
Okay. Yep, agreed. Okay, keep on moving. New Orleans, Sacramento is the next game we'll talk about. We got a couple games left here, and there's no line on this game, mostly because of really the back-to-backs and also Anthony Davis. We don't even know if he's playing tonight, let alone tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's out yet.
Yeah, so obviously.
Right, so that's
kind of up in the air, yeah.
Yeah, and they're playing the late game tonight, the only team that's playing the late game. So they are traveling for the second leg of back-to-back. So depending on kind of how many, if Anthony Davis plays tonight, some of these guys might be a little bit tired in the game tomorrow night, another late game. So we have Anthony Davis questionable with the back contusion. And on the Kings side, we have Caspi, who's probable to play with his back injury, so we can expect him back. And then James Anderson is probable with a hamstring injury, and Willie Cauley-Stein is probable with a finger injury. So we can expect all three of those guys to play.
Okay. So, I mean, this is going to be hard to break down the New Orleans side. I guess let's assume that Davis is going to play because it was kind of a minor injury. It was only a bruise, and we kind of expected him to play tonight. So,
yeah, I'd say we don't know if he played tonight, but I would say, even though I went Ryan Anderson on both sides, but I would say he's more likely to play than not. And then I think especially for tomorrow. But, you know, we're forgetting the fact that if he does play tonight, he will get injured. So we'll probably have the same thing tomorrow with him being questionable for this game. Either way, I think we can break it down the same. I think this will be a very high total.
Yeah, I do too.
Very fast-paced game with the Kings. Mm-hmm. So definitely a really juicy game here.
Yeah, so let's start on New Orleans side and kind of work through quickly here. So Anthony Davis, I think obviously this is a good total. I would expect it to be when the line comes out, but obviously injury concern, number one. And number two, you know, potential foul trouble with Boogie, I think takes him out of cash.
Yeah, I think I mean, I agree. You know, I like him a lot, obviously. I love him as a tournament play in this game.
Yeah, ceiling for sure. Right.
He suits up and stuff. But, yeah, I'm with you. I think some of these other kind of high-priced guys are also in really good spots and a lot more safe to the point where I don't think you need to go Anthony Davis too much in this game. And then I think you can still look at Tyreek quite a bit. I think he's been playing really well, big minutes here.
Yep.
Drew is an interesting player for this game because this will be a back-to-back for him. Yeah. We saw his minutes limit kind of disappear. So this could be a situation possibly where he sees less than the 36 or 35 minutes we've seen him get lately. So I don't think he'll be as much of a cash game option, really, even though I do like him a lot in the spot.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I think the guys that you're always really interested in playing are in pretty good spots here. So, I mean,
yeah, for sure. And then
Tyreek and Rhino, obviously Ryan Anderson and Drew, I think are all intriguing. And I think, you know, I think Drew would probably be my favorite cash game play of those, just relative to his price. But I don't think it's awful.
I agree. And we'll assume Drew is just off his minutes limit. So I think back to back, but it's something to monitor at least. Kind of, we hear more news of him seeing decreased minutes or whatever. And then, I think Ryan Anderson's value obviously directly lies on Anthony Davis's status.
Cool. Sacramento side, Boogie, man, he's been good lately.
Yeah, definitely strong cash game option, 100%. Both sites, he's a great cash game option, and I think it's a route where you could probably kind of easily afford him with some of this value opening up. So I don't know. I mean, I think FanDuel for sure. You can kind of go him, just put him in almost. DK, I think you still can, but I think it's interesting if you want to play Dwight and Cousins.
Yeah, I think you can.
Assuming Dwight is playing on his back-to-back, yeah. I probably like that strategy a lot for tournaments. Those guys having some pretty big upside there. So I think definitely that's one way you can have a pretty big tournament lineup there.
Yeah, for sure. And then so big question here is going to be Rondo. Obviously, if Drew's off his minutes limit, then the total I think is going to be good. But are you worried about matchup at all?
No, not too much. I don't think for Rondo really. I am kind of worried about minutes, I guess, a little bit with kind of calls and seeing a lot. And so I think Rondo I like more for tournaments, kind of just with his price. I think he's a very strong play though. In this game that I'm expecting to have a really high total, and they're seeing the Pelicans off back to back. So I think he could probably creep into cash game consideration if you kind of just have that money to spend up for him. But I think there are better options to spend up for than Rondo overall, like Cousins, for example. So I definitely like Rondo, though, quite a bit there. And then with Caspi back, it kind of just closes up the value we've been used to with like Bellinelli and even Rudy Gay a little bit to limit them for tournament options. Caspi included probably, I think, is a tournament option, and Rudy Gay definitely as well.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think this is going to be a juicy game. Obviously, this is probably the most important one to monitor the news of Davis and also get the line when it comes out. But probably going to be a juicy game to target here. So definitely keep up on that. Let's keep on going. We got 2 more games left. Utah, Portland's the next game. And no total here, but we do have a spread, which is Portland -2. Yeah, so Portland favored, but obviously a lot of that has to do with Utah just continuing to be decimated by injuries.
Yeah, so speaking of, we got Derek Favors once again questionable with a back injury. He's missed 10 games in a row. So it's kind of hard to get a read because a lot of times the Jazz say he's closer, but they're being really, secretive to say about the injury. And I think a reason is kind of just that they don't want to like set a return date so there's any pressure on Favors returning. It's kind of, but I think he is close. So obviously that swings a few things, and then no notable injuries on the Blazers side.
Cool. So this is interesting for me because, with the really good elite guys in awesome matchups, now we have like Lillard and Hayward who are a little bit priced down, that you could potentially look at, or even like Gobert in a pretty good matchup. Finally got over 30 minutes in a really good matchup against Portland. This is kind of a sneaky game for me tomorrow night.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, yeah, I think Hayward's definitely a good spot. I even think you can have some Rodney Hood exposure in this one, and then yeah, definitely. I agree. The Blazers defense is far from good.
Yeah, no, definitely not. So I think Hayward's fine in cash. Like, if you don't want to go like pay up for Durant or like down to potentially Lance Thomas if Melo is out, you kind of want to split the difference. Not split the difference, but kind of be in the middle is Hayward. I think it's a fine option here. Gobert 6-1, I really like actually. I get not going him in cash because his usage is still so low. I mean, he only like his last couple of games, he's taken 3 shots, 4 shots in the last 3. I mean, he's made all of them. Like, he hasn't missed ever, but
right. No, yeah, I expect his usage to kind of remain low, so I'm not too high on him really at this point.
Even in tournaments?
I think you can have some tournament exposure, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Any other guys on Utah side? Hood, still getting even if it's inconsistent, higher minutes.
Right. Yeah, I think he's just a slightly too inconsistent for my liking in cash.
Okay.
But I do like him though in the spot. It's just the inconsistency with his foul trouble or shooting woos that might send him to the bench a bit earlier than usual.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's kind of it for Utah for me. Withy was a thing. Booker's kind of evened out there in minutes, so that's not really interesting to me anymore. So it's kind of Hayward and Cash / tournaments and Gobert and tournaments. Hood,
Yeah,
maybe a little bit here and there.
I agree.
Portland, where are you at on them?
Yeah, so I kind of like this spot. I mean, it's the same as usual with Lillard and McCollum, and I think Lillard absolutely for tournaments.
He's been crushing lately.
Yeah, and he just went off against the Thunder we saw, which was amazing.
He's gone off the last 2 games against the Thunder and Warriors.
Right. Yeah.
Like two good teams.
I still consider him a bit more of a tournament play than Cash. Although I wouldn't mind it because of his high floor. And obviously, the Jazz aren't the greatest at point guards, but you do have Gobert back, who's a solid rim presence, of course. So I'm a little hesitant to roll Lillard out in Cash, feeling great about it. But I love it. Obviously, his tournament upside that he has with his threes.
Yeah, I think he's fine in Cash. I mean, you're right. And I think he has a pretty safe floor as far as threes too. I mean, he's going to hit 3 or 4.
Oh yeah. His floor probably does. Yeah, he's in Cash because of his floor.
Yeah, and his assists have been up lately as well as his steals. I mean, he's been up at double-digit assists, close to double-digit assists, 9 or 10, and 2 steals in the last 3 or 4. So, yeah, he's been doing really well. So I think 9-2 is pretty fair for him. So I definitely don't mind that. Definitely elite tournament play for sure, though.
And then speaking of tournament play, I think McCollum is a solid tournament play here as well.
Yeah, agreed. And that's really it for me as far as Portland goes, as usual. Mason Plumlee got over 30 minutes and crushed last game, but against Gobert, I'm not really looking at that.
Your favorite family in the NBA?
Favorite family.
The Plumlees.
Yep, USA champion.
Right.
Okay, let's get to the last game then. Miami at the Clippers is the next game, and it's the late game, 10:35, no line here. So Whiteside was scared of Dre Magic, so he sat out. Do we have any news of whether he's going to play again?
He backed out hard of that matchup.
It was probably because of Draymond.
I think so. Yeah. We do have news. He's listed as questionable for this game with his knee injury, and then Josh McRoberts has no timetable to return. We should just really forget about him altogether and really never bring his name up again. I think would be the safer route. And then on the Clippers side, we actually have DeAndre Jordan has an illness, and he's listed as questionable but expected to play. So we'll go into this assuming he will play.
Okay. Miami side, so if Whiteside is out, unfortunately, there's no direct insertion of guys, and really it's just been a bump up to Bosch, even though he has still had a pretty good game against Golden State, even though he didn't shoot very well, but usage and still
Right. No, I like Bosch at the 5 for our purposes quite a bit, and even in real, because he creates a bunch of mismatches, and he kind of has a really good all-around game, especially offensively, where he can bring guys out to the mid-range, kind of perimeter-wise, and still bang down low with a bunch of people. So I think he's the guy, if Whiteside is ruled out, that you can look at. And then I think overall, the other guys are more tournament options like Dwayne Wade. And possibly, who else do you like on this team? The Clippers. The Clippers, so in their last, 9 games have had incredible defensive stats, but I think more than how their defense is actually playing is their opposition has been
bad. And
the worst 9 teams they could possibly play, they just played.
Yeah, and it wasn't. That was part of it was the teams, but one of their beat reporters, Dan Wyke, tweeted out, he was like, here's all the players that they missed on this 9-game streak. And it was literally every team's best player.
Yeah.
They play the Clippers. So it was kind of misleading.
They've had an incredible stretch in terms of just softness of schedule and guys missing games, and they might run into another one if Whiteside's out. But
it's like a Golden State-ish stretch of.
I wasn't going to go there, but you can compare the two, I guess, if you want. But Whiteside obviously a big factor for this Heat defense, of course. So
you could say that.
You
could also argue the opposite, that it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, advanced stats.
I think it does, but yeah, I mean, we saw Winslow start obviously last game, so you got Winslow and Dang kind of in there to kind of lock down a few guys. But I'm more speaking of kind of interior defense lacking with Whiteside out. But anyone else you like kind of on Miami side that's a cash option, you'd say?
No, it's just Bosh.
I think Bosh, and especially if DeAndre, in the off chance that he is ruled out, not feeling better, then that just obviously makes me like Bosh more.
Yeah. And then, in tournaments, I think Wade is fine.
Right. Yeah.
That's about it for me.
Agree.
Clippers side, the issue really is that it was a great spot to target CP3 if, Gordon and Griffin are both out, because, CP3 would have to do everything. Like, he'd have to be the John Wall of his team. Unfortunately, it's Miami, who is just a brutal matchup. Maybe, outside of the Spurs, the worst matchup that you could ask for a point guard. So,
yeah, I think a lot of that kind of ties into Whiteside, though, really, with point guards penetrating, driving to the rim. So I love Chris Paul in this spot as a tournament play.
Sure.
I think we have plenty of other guys to kind of go. Lillard.
He'll be on her own for sure.
Yeah, we have a lot of guys, but exactly. I think this is a spot where Chris Paul could probably be overlooked a little bit, and in a spot where I think he can have a really big game. He obviously has tons of upside, and with Blake out, he's still been asked to do a lot. So I think this is a good spot to really target him for tournaments.
Yeah, and if Whiteside's out, Jordan kind of the same deal. Maybe not cash, but tournaments. Yeah. Yeah,
tournaments probably, and I think it.
He's with his top price on DK right now, though.
Right. So it depends. We got both guys. So Whiteside's questionable. Jordan's technically questionable. So it's one of those games we probably won't know their concrete status until the game. So you might want to avoid them in
on
cash.
FanDuel.
But, right, on FanDuel, yeah. I think you could possibly get away with going DeAndre in cash on DK, but I wouldn't with the other options like Dwight, a lot cheaper at center, and then on FanDuel you have Boogie. So I don't think it's really a spot you're looking for him in cash, and I think he can have definitely some tournament exposure though if Whiteside is out and Jordan is healthy.
Yeah, if you're going double center with like Cousins and you really want DeAndre, you could always pivot down to Bosh if you don't have him.
Yeah. You can make stuff work. So
yeah. But you're probably reaching at that point in a 10-game slate.
Right.
Yeah, so it's CP3, DeAndre, and that's about it for me. So,
really, that's
kind of probably how it
pretty much does it. I'm not looking at obviously Mute or Paul Pierce,
right.
bench, and then Redick just doesn't really have as much upside or consistency to be considered in either format.
Cool. All right, well, we'll end it. We'll leave you guys with that. 10 games, Wednesday slate, 2 10-game slates in a row. So thanks for sticking it through with us, 2 nights in a row doing podcasts.
Tonight was an 8-game slate.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Okay. You missed the easy pod.
Dang.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Well, okay. Yeah, we'll leave you guys, and we'll talk to you guys Thursday for the Friday slate. So good luck as always. Hope you guys take down tournaments, especially with Boban. No, he's not playing. Sadly.
Hopefully. Take down some tournaments tomorrow, though. I think tomorrow the way it will play out, I think we'll have a lot of kind of chalk plays. So I think it's really easy, like a guy like Chris Paul. I think you can pivot some of these low-owned guys who are in good spots that will be great tournament plays.
Great. Cool. All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys later this week.
Good luck, guys.